and turned the California dream on its head.
Sublime is the Beach Boys on crack. They combine the beauty with the horror.
If it wasn't for day reggae, just trying to write a good song.
Led by a Long Beach rebel named Brad Nowell, Sublime did everything they could to sabotage their own success.
They had that punk rock attitude. They didn't want to kiss anyone's butts.
Show up late was a given. Show up drunk was a given.
I'm so stoned. I smoked 2 joints before I smoked 2 joints, and then I smoked 2 more.
They were rebels, and they were real rock and roll in that way.
1 step forward, 2 steps back is like the theme of the existence of Sublime.
For Sublime's lead singer, self-destruction took the form of a heroin habit.
He had a love affair with his music and the drugs combined.
Heroin addiction's not like any other addiction, and he wasn't strong enough to fight it.
Ultimately, it killed him.
They said that Brad was dead. I'll never forget the moment.
He's gone, man. That's that. End of story.
Jacob won't ever have any memories of his dad, won't know his dad, and that's the saddest thing.
Just weeks after Brad's death, Sublime released the album that would break them. It became an instant classic and a bittersweet tribute to lost potential.
This was a seminal band. They were that good, they were that innovative.
People critically don't think of Brad in terms of the Jim Morrisons and the Kurt Cobains, but they will.
Now, the fall and rise of the band that always pushed it too far.
It's the ultimate rock and roll story.
They're just classic rock and roll ups.
Let's trash the whole place.
Sublime, the story behind the music.
Terrific! Yeah! Come on, buddy. Step on back.
After 5 years of struggling through rehabs and relapses, it looked like Bradley had finally beaten his addiction to heroin. But as the band headed out on tour in May of 1996, old temptations returned. Bradley Nowell relapsed and overdosed in a motel room. He was dead at the age of 28.
It was just devastating, you know. It was something that you kind of try and prepare for, but you can never be prepared for something like that, you know. Somebody that you care about so much, you love so much.
Everybody talks about grief and how you can get through it and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is you don't. There's just some things that you have to live with in life, and there's no way to get over it.
But he was needy.
As Brad grew, he became a difficult child who was bored by school and disruptive.
He had attention deficit, and he would just bounce off the walls and couldn't concentrate on anything too long.
He was always testing, just to see what he could get away with, how far he could push, and I learned to be real frustrated.
Brad's rebellious behavior only intensified when his parents divorced in 1978. His mother was awarded custody, but she found the 10-year-old too difficult to control on her own.
He was a tough kid to handle, and she was always calling me and saying, come get him.
Brad began spending more and more time with his dad. And in the summer of '79, they solidified their bond with a sailing trip around the Virgin Islands. The father and son spent a month touring the bars and beaches of the Caribbean. That's where Brad got his first taste of reggae music.
Bob Marley was huge down there at the time. So when he came back, he could not only play it, but he really enjoyed it.
When Brad was 12, he moved in full-time with his dad in Long Beach and started focusing on music. He learned guitar and jammed with neighborhood kids all through his teens.
We grew up on the alley living across from each other and started playing music when we were about 12, I guess.
In 1987, Brad formed a band with Eric Wilson on bass and Bud Gaugh on drums.
It was like magic, you know. It was like, wow, cool, finally somebody that can play guitar and sing, you know. So we really vibed really well.
We practiced every day for like 3-4 hours. We'd be up there, and we'd like friends, neighbors, whoever that we knew, to come upstairs and hear our new band.
Welcome to my house, friends and neighbors.
They called their new group Sublime. The neighbors called it Disturbing the Peace.
Being down here at the beach, all the homes are 6 feet apart, and they'd play in the garage. I had neighbors mad at me everywhere we lived.
We would play anywhere, anytime, for anything, for any reason.
You had to have Sublime play your party if A, you wanted it to be out of hand, B, you wanted a mass amount of people to come.
So we were constantly getting numbered by the cops and stuff.
You guys sound real good, but if you start it up, I'm gonna take with me. Let's go, guys. Oh. Check out.
We're shutting it down then.
Let's go.
Thank you very much, guys. Good night.
What a party!
Sublime played backyard parties all over Orange County for a couple of years. Then in the spring of '90, music student Michael Happel approached them with an offer they couldn't refuse.
I said, you know, I go to school, I got free studio time, you know. Brad like lit up, he was like, yeah, we're down for that. I got some songs right now.
We went in and snuck in after hours and recorded all night long from, you know, midnight till 7 o'clock in the morning before the professor got back there.
That's when things got out of control.
They recorded a demo called Ja Won't Pay the Bills and sold it at their shows. The tape circulated all over Orange County, creating a buzz in the region's thriving.
Became our favorite tape. I thought that Bradley was the black guy, you know, because his voice is so like soulful, and I had it all in my head exactly what he looked like, you know, and I was falling in love with him just from his voice.
And he screamed, but the gods paid no attention to his cries.
By 1991, Sublime was becoming legendary in the local. But by the time he entered his 20s, his curiosity got the better of him.
His excuse for taking the heroin was that he felt like he had to be larger than life. He was leading the band, he was leading his fans, and he had to put on this persona. He'd heard a lot of musicians say that they were taking heroin to be more creative and all that kind of bunk. So those were his excuses.
He thought that he could wear it like a, you know what I mean, like a costume for a while, and control it, you know. I think he honestly thought that, you know, for a while.
Coming up, one wild day at the Weenie Roast.
Sublime gave out 300 laminates to all of their friends. All of Long Beach was backstage. K-Rock was freaking out.
There's only a finite number of...
Tim Louie, after his grandfather.
Lou Dog just loved Brad because it's like the first time he had like actually been shown love, you know.
Brad and Lou Dog were instantly inseparable.
Everybody say Louie, 1, 2, 3.
Definitely a member of the band for sure. I mean, he was everywhere that they went. Louie Dog was there. He sung about Louie Dog, you know, and it was a really big part of his life.
Louie would stand on stage when they'd play, and he'd just curl up next to Brad's feet. He was the rock star dog.
In March of '91, Sublime produced their first full-length album, 40 Ounces to Freedom. recording it with money they scraped together from friends and family. By '92, they were headlining and selling out clubs throughout Southern California.
We packed the place. I mean, it would be a madhouse.
Reputation was spreading, the CDs were selling, it was getting out.
This is the original track of the next album.
It was like a party. They would turn each club into a party.
Let's trash the whole place.
Troy Dendecker fell for Sublime the first time she saw them in the summer of '92. After the show, she fell for Brad and invited him back to a party at a friend's house.
He was kind of an introvert, kind of shy, but he was very intelligent. And Brad and I ended up just talking all night and became friends.
He told me the first day that he had met her that he had met somebody really special.
Brad and Troy's relationship would develop gradually over the course of a couple of years. But at the same time, Brad was developing a heroin habit. And by early '93, friends say he had become an addict.
He had told me he had been getting high for a while and that he needed it. He was sick, and I could kind of see it in his face that he had been using.
It was the big gossip. Oh yeah, you heard that lead singer of Sublime, he's all strung out and he's a heroin addict, he's a junkie. And Brad wasn't secretive about it. He did not hide it from anyone.
I'd talked to him, you know, about it, and I had tried to nurse him back to health, tried to, you know, beat him up a few times and knock some sense into him, and none of those things worked.
Lying in my plastic bed, thinking how things weren't so cool to me.
By the time Brad started recording Sublime's second album in June of '93, it was clear that heroin had a firm grip on his life.
Tying on that dinosaur.
The song Pool Shark was Brad's take on powerlessness in the face of addiction.
Now I've got that needle and I can't shake, but I can't breathe. I take it away, I want more and more. One day I'm gonna lose the war.
It's really sad, but he wrote what he knew, and he pretty much laid it out there.
There's no question that Brad understood the dangers involved and that he knew that it was a life-threatening situation. He understood that. I worried every night about getting the phone call, you know, that he had OD'd.
At this point, you know, it wasn't a question of was it going to happen, it was more of a question of when it was going to happen.
I want more and more. One day I'm gonna lose the war.
Next, Brad's family steps between him and his addiction.
I actually physically fought him on the stairs.
My wife had to knee him in his most vulnerable spot to stop him.
I hit him in the balls and he went down hard.
When Behind the Music continues. With their music, Sublime told tales from the seedier side of the California dream, where hookers and hard drugs were as much a part of life as the sun and the surf.
The only family that she...
They are the Beach Boys in a postmodern era. There's a lot of kids with drug problems and parental problems, and Brad was coming out telling you how it was.
I'll do anything I can the wrong way.
Sublime's frontman, Brad Nowell, was living the life he wrote about. By '93, the 25-year-old was scoring heroin on the streets of Long Beach.
We were partying, pretty much out of control, you know? You're drinking like booze every day. Brad was definitely, you know, on hard drugs.
Sublime's reckless reputation scared more than a few record labels away. But in the fall of '93, they won an ally at Gasoline Alley, a boutique label owned by MCA Records.
I'd already started telling the label, like, look, you know, I want to sign this band, and this is a band that's going to musically break through.
In October of '93, John Phillips convinced an executive at Gasoline Alley to meet with Sublime to discuss a possible deal.
Sublime came in with their crew and their dogs and, you know, like, took over.
We'd been drinking, you know, we were gonna celebrate, you know. We're already thinking, we're gonna get signed.
Brad thought he was gonna walk in and sign a deal in one day and walk with 30G and he'd be happy. It's like, hey bro, it don't work like that.
The band says they waited for hours, but the executive was too busy to meet them. So drunk and frustrated, they snuck into his office to take their revenge.
Lou Dog kind of needed to use the restroom, and he kind of took a dumper in the guy's office.
We drive off, just dying of laughter, you know, crying.
All hell broke loose. It's like, the deal's done. I don't ever want to do this, that, and another thing.
He didn't really take a liking to that too much. You know, he's kind of pissed off.
But 9 months later, Gasoline Alley reconsidered and signed Sublime to a 6-record deal.
It doesn't matter what they did. Their music was good enough where they could actually break through and not have to play the game, you know, and they were definitely doing it on their own terms.
At the time, Brad had more than a record deal to celebrate. By early '94, he had fallen deeply in love with his friend Troy Dendecker.
I just loved him with unconditional love, no matter what. And I was going to stand by his side and just try and be understanding. I wasn't trying to really tell him what to do or how to do.
To get off heroin at least 10 times over 5 years, but each time rehab would lead to relapse.
He tried really hard. I mean, he did go through rehab several times. We paid for, I don't know how many rehabs we paid. He'd stay 2 or 3 days and then he'd walk out.
In the fall of '94, Brad said he was determined to kick heroin on his own. He asked his father and stepmother to watch over him and help him through the agonizing withdrawal.
He lasted 2 days, and he tried to leave the house, steal the car, and so I actually physically fought him on the stairs.
My wife had to knee him in his most vulnerable spot to stop him.
I hit him in the balls and he went down hard, and then I just grabbed him by his collar and I drug him up the stairs.
A couple hours later, he was going out the door, and I put him up against the wall. I said, "You're not going." And he said, "Dad, there's no use." He said, "If it's not now, it's going to be some other time. You know, you just can't stop it."
And that night, Jim said to me, "You better let this kid go because we're not going to have him that long."
Soon, Brad's struggle to get clean would take on even greater urgency. In October of '94, his girlfriend, Troy, learned that she was pregnant.
He was still abusing heroin, and it was scary for me. I really wasn't ready. I was kind of freaked out, you know, especially because of where we were in our lives. We didn't have money. I mean, the band wasn't doing really well.
But the band's fortunes were about to change. In January of '95, the influential Los Angeles radio station KROQ
whole office is like, let's call, request. 2 hours, 3 hours later, the phones were lighting up so much, we didn't have to call.
It was my first time I ever shot a video for anything, and I thought it was pretty fun. We all got so butt-housed.
That's when things got out of control.
The first week after K-Rock played Date Rape, I got a call from every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every promoter looking to book the band. Because as soon as you have a song playing on K-Rock, you're worth something to them.
We've got a #1 song on K-Rock, and from there, the band gets its first real legitimate tour.
In June of '95, the band rolled into K-Rock's annual Weenie Roast, and in typical Sublime fashion, they immediately set about alienating their one ally in the radio industry.
We all have weenies, but we haven't eaten.
We're just a bunch of weenies. We're just a bunch of big weenies.
We were just burning bridges big time. It was fun though.
Joined by fellow Orange County rocker Gwen Stefani, Sublime hit the stage with a vengeance, intent on causing as much mayhem as possible.
The station, as I recall, gives us like 10 backstage passes. I mean, it just wasn't sufficient.
They always have an entourage of about 4 billion people.
We had a friend with a computer and a printer, and we printed up some passes.
It's to all of their friends. So all of Long Beach was backstage. K-Rock was freaking out.
There's only a finite number of people that can be backstage without the fire marshal coming in and clearing everybody out and basically shutting down the show. It's not good.
And all the people they hang out with, hi you guys, are crazy, you know what I mean? Like, just wild, like, just take over.
Sublime's outrageous antics in front of the hometown crowd only made them more popular in Southern California.
They just wanted to play their music, and while they weren't playing, they were gonna piss everyone off, irritate everyone, and they were like a bunch of kids in a candy store running around, you know, doing whatever they wanted.
But soon, Brad Nowell would be forced to grow up.
Hey, you guys want to say hi to my girlfriend, Troy? She's having my baby in like 3 days.
She's having my baby!
It's gonna be a boy. Yeah, say hi. Hi, Troy.
He's like, I'm gonna be a daddy. He was so proud. He wanted Jacob so badly.
Honey bear, I gotta go, all right?
He couldn't have been happier, and of course I couldn't have been happier either. That it hopefully would be something that he could pin his emotions on, and it would help him deal with his addiction.
On June 25th, 1995, Troy gave birth to a baby boy they named Jacob.
Bradley couldn't wait to teach Jacob everything. He wanted to teach him surfing and music and snowboarding and get him his own little Dalmatian, and that was his little guy.
You know, he had a sparkle in his eye that I hadn't seen in a long time.
And I remember him playing his guitar and having Jake on the bed, and he would sit on the bed and play to him. He loved it.
I remember Brad being like fat, healthy, and holding his kid in his arms, and he told me, now that I have a kid, man, I gotta sort of straighten up, and I'm gonna do it for my kid. I'm happy.
Next, from local heroes to national superstars, Sublime hits the big time.
Next thing you know, my phone's ringing. Turn on K-Rock right now. What I got, it was on, and that was it. And the people demanded it.
Loving is what I got.
When Behind the Music continues. A record deal, and he had a brand new baby son named Jacob.
He had everything that he wanted, everything was going right in his life.
It's another reason why he turned to drugs. You know, it pulled him out of it. He was trying to self-medicate.
Brad had made an effort to get clean after the birth of his son, but when the band headed out to Austin, Texas in early '96 to record their major label debut, his resolve weakened.
Brad felt a lot of pressure for the self-titled album. He didn't have a lot of songs written when he went out there to start recording it.
Brad was certainly going through conflict and stress or depression or whatever it was. I remember him telling me, you know, man, lyrics are hard, you know?
He started using real heavily once we got out there.
The amount of time that Brad spent shooting up started turning into long periods of time where I didn't know if he was okay or not, and it came a point to where it scared me, and I just called the label and said, bring these guys home. They were scaring me, and Brad was scaring me, and I didn't know what to do.
5 weeks into the sessions, the label decided to send Brad back home to Southern California to clean up.
His addiction was just eating him up at that point, you know, and it was scary because he was really beyond any of us helping him. He needed to get some professional help.
It was the worst Troy had ever seen Brad, and she didn't want Jacob around his father in that strung-out state. So she packed up and left.
She called me up and said, Brad's back and I'm going home to Mother. He's a mess. So I ran down there and we were hugging in his kitchen and he said, Dad, I'm so sorry, you know, that I'm disappointing you. And I said, you're not disappointing me. I said, I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder of your music and all the things that you've done. But I'm, at the same time, I'm deathly afraid that you're going to kill yourself.
Brad made another vow to kick heroin, and this time he made good. After staying clean for 3 months, he and Troy were so optimistic about his recovery that they decided to get married.
That was the happiest I'd ever seen Brad. He was just truly happy that day.
On May 18th, 1996, they wed at a chapel in Las Vegas, surrounded by friends and family. And it seemed like Brad was opening a new chapter in his life.
I believe Brad had, you know, made a real commitment to clean up at that point for his wife and his kid. Things were going good for him.
I really thought that it looked like there was light at the end of the tunnel.
3 days after the wedding, Sublime embarked on a short West Coast tour. They had just put the finishing touches on the self-titled album they had recorded in Texas, and they were revving up for its release that summer.
Everyone's getting along great. You know, we don't have this problem of, you know, addiction in the band right now.
The shows were all sold out. He was playing all the new songs, and the audience reaction to the new songs was incredible. He couldn't believe it.
It's hard to keep my soul on the ground.
But Sublime's reputation as the good time party band never faded, and the road became a challenging environment for Brad's sobriety.
After one of the shows, there was some late night madness going on, and Brad stumbled onto it.
Brad was offered some heroin, and after 3 months of clean living, he gave in to temptation.
I wanted to party one more time, kind of celebrate this album release. You know, both Eric and I had told him, you don't need that, you know, you don't need to do it.
It's just work that we do, it's just work that we do.
On May 24th, 1996, Sublime rolled into Petaluma, California. That evening, Brad shot up and played the show high on heroin.
Is it ever going to be the last show?
After playing Petaluma, he called me and he was just so happy and he wanted to tell me how much he loved Jacob and me and that they had the best show ever that night. It was the happiest I had ever heard of. I could tell that he'd been partying, you know, and I was a little concerned, but I didn't want to argue with him because he was so happy.
When the band pulled into an oceanside motel in San Francisco late that night, Brad wanted to keep on celebrating.
He'd asked me if I was going to go out and party with him, and, you know, I just wasn't into it. You know, I was tired and, you know, didn't want to, you know, egg him on or support him in using.
Brad stayed out all night, and the next morning, with the beach ablaze in sunshine, he barged in to wake up his bandmates and tell them about the 10-foot waves that were breaking offshore.
He said, hey, get up, let's take Louie down to the beach. It's beautiful out, and I was just hungover, and this could be, and I just like flicked him off and go away, and fell back asleep.
I was hungover as could be. I was not gonna get up. He's like, Mikey, you gotta see this. You're gonna trip, it's incredible. Can't you hear it? You could just hear it. Boom. I was like, oh man. Come get me later.
No one knows for sure what happened next, but it's believed that Brad walked down to the beach with Louie and took in the scenery. Then Brad headed back to the hotel room he was sharing with Bud. He reached into his stash and shot up one last time.
When I woke up, Brad was laying on the bed, and he had his feet on the floor and he was undressed, and I kind of like started laughing, like, you know, oh, you must have had a good time and couldn't even make it all the way into bed. I didn't hear him snoring or any groaning from his hangover or anything, and Lou Dog was like curled up on the end of the bed, kind of like whimpering, like looking really sad. And so I got up and noticed he had like a film around his mouth, some yellow and white foamy mucus. And instantly I knew, you know, that he'd overdosed.
Bud called for help, but by the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. On the morning of May 25th, 1996, 28-year-old Bradley Nowell was pronounced dead.
They were like, he's gone, man. That's that. End of story.
Back home in Long Beach, the phone rang just as Brad's father and stepmother were preparing to take their grandson, Jacob, on a picnic.
We were just getting ready to walk out the door, and we got a telephone call. And I knew as soon as Jim just completely fell apart.
Of course, it's the worst thing that can happen to you, you know, and the most painful thing that can happen to you. To have to go through that kind of grief, I mean, it's debilitating. You can't even stand up. Of course, the worst part is having to tell everybody, you know.
I heard his voice, and he just said that Brad was dead. I'll never forget the moment. First, it's disbelief, but Jim was crying, and he just sounded devastated. It's probably the worst sound in the whole world.
I remember my first reaction was just being pissed. I was so mad at him. I wanted him there to yell at him, to knock him around, you know? Like, you're so stupid, why did you do that? Even though the whole time we were together, he flirted with death, you're never prepared for it actually happening.
For Troy, who had seen Brad through the worst of his heroin addiction, his death was a heartbreaking blow. But she has come to see it as the end of a long and painful struggle.
You know, heroin addiction's not like any other addiction. It's an uphill battle for the rest of your life. And he wasn't strong enough to fight it. And he was just tired of fighting it. But what brings me peace is knowing in my heart that he just went to sleep. He was just tired. He had finished everything he needed to do in his life, and it was time for him to go.
On June 1st, 1996, Brad Nowell's family and friends gathered in Long Beach, California to say goodbye. After the memorial service, his closest friends took a portion of his ashes down to his favorite surfing spot.
Went down to Surfside, where he was living, and lit a bunch of torches and went out on the beach, and the guys put on their wetsuits and paddled out and scattered his ashes.
So it was like they all got to release a part of Brad and say goodbye to Brad in their own way.
Brad's overdose had left Sublime without a lead singer, his wife Troy without a husband, and most tragically, his 11-month-old son Jacob without a father.
There were was so much that Jacob could have learned from him, and that's where I feel the loss, is when it comes to Jacob. Jacob won't ever have any memories of his dad, won't know his dad. And that's the saddest thing.
In the weeks following Brad's death, Sublime decided there was no way to go on without him. Their final gesture as a group would be to release the self-titled album they had just finished recording.
It was tragedy, but yet it would have been an even bigger tragedy had things not been, released. So we
I still remember that.
The album spawned 5 hit singles and went on to sell 5 million copies, becoming one of the biggest records of 1997.
This was a seminal band. They were that good, they were that innovative, and the music that they made was that original.
People critically don't think of Brad in terms of the Jim Morrisons and the Kurt Cobains, but they
Ouch, and look out the window like he was waiting for Bradley to come home. And he would sigh. He would just, like he just knew Brad was gone.
And when Lou Dog died of old age in the fall of 2001, Brad's family made sure they were reunited by scattering Louie's ashes in the same spot they had scattered Brad's.
It was Jake actually who called me up and told me that Lou died. And he said he's gone to heaven to be with his dad. He has no conscious memory of having had a dad, but he knows that most people have a dad and he doesn't. So he understands that he's lost something.
But Jacob does have the music his father left behind.
Life is too short, so love the one you got, 'cause you might get run over or you might get shot.
The thing that I would hope for people to remember the most is the beautiful music that we made, and if they could learn something from him, it would be that drugs are evil and that nobody is more powerful than drugs.
Down at the loving town.